handcrafted burgers, and locally sourced offerings. Browse our wide selection of specialty products designed to enhance your dining experiences with cheeses, spices, sauces, and more. We also have an exclusive collection of liquors, whiskeys, and bourbons at prices you're sure to love. Stop in to the Butchery by Venue today, located in our Venue at Home storefront at 70th and Pioneers, just 2 doors down from Venue Restaurant and Lounge.
I know that a lot of times, Mom, it might not seem like I'm listening to you, but I am. I hear you. And what you say really does matter to me.
I mean, let's be honest. No kid likes rules, but I get why we have them. I hear you, and I know it's because you care.
For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Sponsored by DHHS and aired in cooperation with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Early break with Sip and Jake.
So with Matt Davis in the studio, president of the 1890 Initiative, Nebraska's NIL operation.
We have some big things that we're going to announce, I think, in the next, few weeks, few months for sure. So I think 1890 and the trajectory for our company is really good. I think we have the ability to have a top 5 collective in the country. I think we're trending that way.
Early break with Sip and Jake from 6 to 8 every weekday morning on 93.7 The Ticket.
I wanted to quit for so long, but didn't know where to start.
I was afraid of what people would think, but then I found the right support to start my recovery journey. 1 in 14 Americans reports experiencing a substance use disorder, a treatable medical condition. Treatment can take many forms, so there are a variety of options to explore and find the one that works best for you. Recovery from drug addiction is possible.
Paid for by the CDC. Sponsored by Nebraska DHHS. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Finally, a good reason to have a smart house. Just say, Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket, and we'll magically start playing. How's it work? Nobody knows. Don't ask questions. 93.7 The Ticket, Fox, KFXL weather. Brought to you by Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing.
Your Lincoln forecast for today, showers is likely this morning. We'll see partly sunny skies this afternoon. We'll see a high of around 84. Tonight, there's a chance of storms late. Otherwise, partly sunny skies expected with a low of around 70. And tomorrow, we'll see another chance of storms. Otherwise, partly sunny skies and a high of around 88. Meteorologist Kyle Clark from 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. The home of Kansas City Royals baseball. KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. Welcome in to the Corner 3. Taking you around the arc of college basketball. From the NAAC to the Pac-12, the WCC to the SWAC. We cover it all now on 93.7 The Ticket. Here is your host, Austin Orman.
That's right. Back in the saddle again. Thanks for everyone who turned in to On the Block from 2 to 4 and Old School from 4 to 6. Been a good first day back on the job, really, since I got back from vacation. My wife and I spent a fantastic week down in Oklahoma and Texas. Made a trip down south. So that's why we had no TC3 last Monday, but we are here wrapping up July on a very positive note with another installment of the Corner 3. Coming up after me from 8 to, I believe, 10, Harrison said, we've got Heart of a Husker with Vershawn Jackson. Always a riot of good times, so make sure you stick around for Heart of a Husker, again, starting at 8 o'clock. But for the next hour, I will be helping take you through some of the biggest college basketball news, including Nebraska men's basketball's trip to Spain, some of the best, most recent wins in Nebraska basketball history, painful losses, and we'll do that for the other teams as well, because I will be joined shortly by the fellas, by the homies Matt and Landon, hopping back on stream, as I always appreciate them doing. But the first order of business before the favorite wins and the painful losses, and before the Nebrasketball trip to Spain update, we go to Florida, specifically Miami, where the biggest booster, maybe the most well-known booster to Miami this side of Nevin Shapiro, might be in a lot of trouble. The name you might know, John Ruiz. He is a bigwig with LifeWallet. That's his company. And LifeWallet has been a massive, massive player in the NIL marketplace for Miami athletics, not just the men's basketball team, the football team involved in that, the women's basketball team as well. So John Ruiz, this booster with Life Wallet, his company is under investigation by the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. That's right, under investigation from one SEC, not the one you might think. Maybe if Miami was better, the actual SEC would, investigate their membership a little more closely. But no knock against Miami, I guess. But the federal SEC is looking into whether Life Wallet was really upfront with their investors about the actual value of the company, and some potential security violations as well. So that's something to monitor because, number one, it's Miami, right? It's Miami. They've been down this road before with Nevin Shapiro and the yacht. They've been down that road with Jaden Rashada, everything that went down with his recruitment, the quarterback, the 4-star, who ends up at Arizona State by way of Miami, by way of Florida, despite never playing a snap for them. But John Ruiz being in the news is an issue for Miami because he reported that he distributed more than $10 million in NIL deals to Hurricanes athletes. That's right, $10 million to Miami athletes just from this one company, Life Wallet. The most well-known deal, of course, with Miami Athletics is Nigel Pack. He was a guard that Nebraska saw at Kansas State. Solid player, good piece. Announces his transfer out of the Little Apple, and he ends up at Miami. He got a 2-year NIL deal, reportedly. It was worth $800,000 and a car. I mean, $800,000, almost, a tenth of what John Ruiz says he's handed out, went to one guy in Nigel Pack. And to his credit, it pretty much worked out. The last couple of years for Miami, so the 21-22 season, the first one after the NIL legislation was signed, Miami goes 26-11 overall, 14-6 in ACC play. They get a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament, but make a run to the Elite Eight. Nigel Pack. Then in 2022-23, Miami wins 29 games. They go 29-8. They go 15-5 in conference play, and they make it to the Final Four. They take a step forward from a couple seasons ago. The only reason those two runs are interesting is because the previous 3 years, Miami basketball 10-17, 15-16, and 14-18. I'm not saying NIL had everything to do with Miami being good, making the runs they did. Jim Larrañaga's a really good coach. I mean, he's been in Coral Gables. His first season there would have been the 2011-12 season. The very next year, he takes them to the Elite Eight, out of the tournament for a couple of years, but above 500. Gets another Elite Eight and then 2 first-round losses. Jim Larrañaga is a good coach. He's done good stuff wherever he's been. But John Ruiz's impact on that program and helping him, attract transfers, especially to the caliber of Nigel Pack, that's huge. You can't say the money doesn't play a role. And if we flip over to the women's basketball side of the story, more of the same. We talked about this not overly long ago, but part of the deal with the women's program was the Cavender twins who transfer in. They very famous on social media. TikTok, I think, is their big platform. But the deals with the Cavender twins, Haley and Hannah, the NCAA actually recently ruled against them, saying they were impermissible deals. There were pictures taken at what I think we decided was John Ruiz's house. He tweeted out a picture with the two girls there, kind of as a, what are you going to do about it, right? NIL is legal now, but that crossed the line because that was more of an inducement. The Cavender twins, I don't believe, had committed to Miami at the time. So that's where you get into more of your, typical kind of pay-for-play scandal. So the deal's ruled impermissible. And Katie Meyer, the head coach for Miami, did have to sit out 3 games due to that ruling. So obviously that's a huge deal on the basketball side with players the caliber of Pack and the Cavender twins. But there's some football players with deals as well. Tyler Van Dyke, who took a huge step backwards from 2 seasons ago to last season, not the season he was looking for. Projected mid-round NFL draft pick. He's really got to climb his way up the draft boards again. Cam Kinchens, also, he plays safety for the football team. So with John Ruiz being under investigation, I don't want to say that that's the end of Miami basketball. In fact, I think Miami's going to be really good for, years to come. Like I said, Jim Larrañaga is a really good coach. They've got a lot of pieces there. I know they do lose Isaiah Wong, but Omir's back. Jordan Miller gone as well. He's a guy that I was a big fan of, as much as you can be, I guess, as a Nebraska-Duke combo rooter in terms of a Miami player. But Jordan Miller at 6'7" on the wing, his ability to shoot it, drive it, defend it at a high enough level. That's a guy I think can stick at the NBA level if he continues to shoot it there. But again, Jim Larrañaga's a good coach. I don't think Miami's going anywhere because they've been good at different points under him, right? They were good early. They've been good kind of in the middle of his tenure. And then before that dip a few years ago, and since that dip, all they've done is made an Elite Eight and a Final Four. So I don't think Miami is going anywhere, but I do think that if the money dries up a little bit, it might be harder for Jim Larrañaga to recruit down to Coral Gables. The ACC not being as strong, I think it's lost a little bit of luster as well. So that's working against him. So ultimately, this comes down to Jim Larrañaga and his ability to really recruit, right? Not induce, not force NIL deals to get the job done for him, but to actually, put boots on the ground, recruit guys there, and then also to coach, right? Miami's played a different style. They've done a lot of 4-out, sometimes even 5-out with Omir at the 5. They have stretch bigs, and that's a style that I wouldn't be shocked to see Nebraska play more of this year, especially if Blaise Keita is out of the game. And we'll get to more Nebrasketball later in the show. But if you want my opinion on what Nebraska basketball could or even should to some degree look like, I would tell you to go watch Miami film. They play guards, a lot of them at the same time. They drive and kick a lot, and they have enough size on the wings, enough dedication from their wing groups to rebound at a high enough level to get away with making the math work in their favor. That's what Miami does, right? The drive and kick results in a lot of open threes. It's a lot of quick guards, a lot of ball movement, and they knock down their open ones, something Nebraska's really struggled with, really basically as long as I've been paying attention to Nebraska basketball. It's not just a Fred Hoiberg problem, not just a Tim Miles era problem. Nebraska basketball needs to shoot it better. Miami's kind of found that secret sauce. That's how they can get away with playing so small and playing against, some of those bigger, more bruising teams like Carolina's tried to be, like Virginia's tried to be, and like Duke. Like, as a Duke fan, I hate playing Miami, right? They're small, they're quick, they give Duke troubles because they shoot it well. Length and athleticism are great, but they only take you so far. If you can't recover out to contest a 3, you can't keep your guy in front of you. So I would advise you Nebraska fans out there to go back and watch some Miami basketball. Maybe just their postseason highlights are going to be the easiest to find. But my guess is you'll start seeing some more of that stuff incorporated into your Nebraska basketball as it moves forward. So that's a good update there on the NIL situation down in Miami. We'll definitely keep monitoring that. Like I said, we will get into Nebraska men's basketball in Spain in just a little bit. But we'll welcome in the fellas after our break, Matt and Landon, because we're going over some of the best wins, but also the most painful losses, right? The duality of man. We have to hit both sides. We can't just have a downer episode. We can't just have a, happy, positive episode. We need to be leveled out. So I asked the guys to, put their heads down to the books to get to studying up on some of their favorite wins for Oklahoma State and Kentucky. I did the same for Duke and Nebraska. So that's where we're going with the Corner 3 here on 93.7 The Ticket. We'll jump into that next.
You're listening to the Corner 3 on 93.7 The Ticket. More college basketball analysis after this timeout.
If you want all the latest technologies from those big banks, but you also want that hometown feel when you walk in the front doors, choose Midwest Bank. They have top-notch technology. They make banking so easy, and they also have the friendliest staff who will take their time to get to know you and treat you like family. You get the best of both worlds when you choose Midwest Bank. I live on the go, and now I can bank on the go. With Midwest Bank, I have everything I need at my fingertips. I'm volleyball player Allie Batenhorst, and at Midwest Bank, you'll love banking here.
General contractors, business owners, property owners. The success of your business requires doing business with the right people. And the right people, when it comes to drywall, acoustical ceilings, and specialty products, are at Premier Drywall. Kevin and his crew will give your project the response and attention it deserves.
You'll get all of the attention to detail and quality that you would expect from someone who's been in the business for 30 years. For your new builds, build-outs, or renovations, reach out to Kevin. Kevin at PremierDW.com. Premier Drywall in Lincoln.
Arnold's Tavern in Havelock is the place to be this summer, and the best place in town for shuffleboard. Come on Wednesdays and learn from some of the best players in town for the Shuffleboard Corner. Come on Sundays for Open House League all day starting at 11 a.m. and enjoy $3 tall boys and $3 wells. Shake off the start to the work week with karaoke on Monday nights. And don't forget, happy hour is every day from 3 to 6 p.m., and you are always welcome to bring in your own food. Arnold's Tavern in the heart of Havelock.
Are you working in or looking to get into the electrical construction industry? The electrical workers of Local Union 265 are now hiring licensed journeymen and apprentices and are offering great pay and benefits. Call Mike at 402-875-1034 to apply. Start your electrical career today.
The Nebraska soccer team wants to see you this fall at Hibner Stadium for their 2023 season. Season tickets are on sale now. Reserve your spot to cheer on the Huskers as they take on some of the best teams in the Big Ten and around the country. Opponents include Missouri, Wisconsin, St. Louis, and more. To buy tickets, go to huskers.com/tickets or call 1-800-8-BIG-RED. They have a full season of fun set for this fall. For promotional information, visit huskers.com.
The wait is almost over. The Guardians of Freedom Air Show is the hottest event in the area. Coming to Lincoln's Air Park on Saturday, August 26th and Sunday, August 27th. Elevate your air show experience with tickets to the premium seating tent, padded seats, meals, and more for just $125. Premium tickets are going fast, so buy yours today. To purchase premium tickets and for more information, visit LincolnAirShow.com. We'll see you at the Guardians of Freedom Air Show in late August.
This is where it happens. Long hikes with friends, kayaking adventures with family, more horseback riding, zip line gliding, rock face climbing, hammock camping fun than you could ever imagine. And it's all outdoors, amongst the trees and across the prairie, here beneath Nebraska skies. Plan an outing today at yournebraskaadventure.com. Sponsored by Nebraska Game and Parks, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Ready to upgrade your combine with new technology to make your harvest more efficient, meaning more money in your pocket? The team at Landmark Implement is here to help find the right combine for harvest. Plus, when you purchase a pre-owned combine from Landmark, you are backed by Landmark's extensive parts and service network, along with mobile techs and parts drop-off points to keep you up and running, reducing downtime. View inventory online at landmarkimp.com or stop by your local Landmark to experience the Landmark difference.
Back to the Corner 3 on 93.7 The Ticket. Here is your host, Austin Orman.
That's right. Back here on the Corner 3 and 93.7 The Ticket. Joined by the fellas. We got Matt and Landon back with us here on the Corner 3. Before we get into the favorite games, I'm sure you guys have plenty, like I do, plenty of honorable mentions, I'm sure. We do have to jump into the Nebrasketball trip to Spain. Huskers win their first game against the Madrid All-Stars, final score of 89-84. It was an overtime game, so Nebraska off the schneid in OT, which is always good to see. But the game itself, I don't know if there's a whole lot to take away from, given how, the sheer number of players that are available, which is not many. Guys are going to get their shots, going to get their touches. And the result, again, with so few guys, there's not necessarily a whole lot to take away. But the one big takeaway is Aaron Eulis. Very quickly became a story. He's been, front and center in some social media pictures for the team on their trip to Spain, but didn't play today. Unsure if he was on the bench at the hotel or what exactly was going on, but no Aaron Eulis for Nebraska against Spain. Sam McEwen of the Omaha World Herald said that on the postgame with Fred Hoiberg, Coach Hoiberg said Aaron Eulis didn't play and won't play as Nebraska gathers evidence on a situation. That sounds ominous. Evidence and situation, don't like those words. And then McEwen said he followed up and asked Hoiberg if the issue was related to something that happened in Spain. And Hoiberg hit him with the no comment. I don't like where that's headed. Landon, we'll start with you. Your initial thoughts with that.
Yeah, nor do I. And one of the more interesting things, I'm glad you pointed out that Nebraska men's basketball has been using pictures of Eulis in their social media content from the trip, because 4 days ago, they also posted a really nice video package on Aaron Eulis. It was, I believe, their New Faces series, and they had a really long sit down with Eulis that they published and put out there mere days ago. So whatever this is with Aaron Eulis, it's got to be something that's really recent. One would have to imagine. I mean, he's in Spain, he's on the trip, and now this has all come up seemingly out of left field. And the other thing I'll say too is that at least from my experience, and I'm sure you both can say the same in covering Fred Hoiberg and Nebraska men's basketball, is that Coach Hoiberg is usually generally a pretty intentional and direct person with the media. He's not really one, at least from my, perspective and opinion, to beat around the bush on, an issue of this magnitude. He's a pretty straight shooter, pretty honest, pretty candid. And the fact that he was so curt with, I guess it was Sam McEwen from the World Herald, when, asked rightly so if there was any more information he could provide, really doesn't seem great. And the final thing I'll add is that if there is a world in which Aaron Eulis is not going to be on the Nebraska men's basketball team, it's, very, very late in the offseason. And if you were to look for a potential replacement, there really isn't a ton out there in the portal. So this is just a really unfortunate set of circumstances that have all sort of culminated together. Obviously, we can only hope that what's going on isn't anything too serious, hopefully, and that, Aaron Eulis is doing okay. We know nothing other than what Fred Hoiberg said post-game about this situation. But it really does seem like it could lead to an unfortunate set of circumstances. So a real bummer, especially with how shorthanded Nebraska was to this trip to Spain already, that, the trip now has gotten off to this sort of start.
Matt, before we get your thoughts, I'll add on to that, Landon, to your point about Fred Hoiberg and how he communicates with the media. He's savvy. He says what he wants to say, what he can say, and he knows how his words are going to be taken. Yeah. So he knows how people are going to perceive them. So Fred Hoiberg has to say no comment. It feels like he has to say no comment. By not saying anything, he's saying a lot. So that's where I fall on it.
Yeah, I'm glad. I was wondering at first, why did Sam only ask about what happened in Spain with this? But then again, when you bring up the fact that he has been involved on a lot of their social media stuff lately, that kind of makes you, it kind of puts two and two together that, maybe something happened. I don't like jumping to conclusions, and who knows if we'll ever know the truth. This could all just end in a suspension. I think Derek Walker went through a similar thing where he got, or that might have been PEDs, where he got half a season suspension.
Well, he started out this year, with the personal reasons, right? Fred Hoiberg
this would have been 2021 or something.
I thought he just had the midseason transfer deal, and that's why he couldn't play.
Oh, it might have been that. I don't want to disperse Derek Walker's name here. But yeah, no, I'm still kind of in the wait and see on it. It is kind of ominous. We did talk about this last time we were here 2 weeks ago, that, this was a kind of prove it trip for Aaron Eulis to see what he's got. Otherwise, there's going to be more transfers coming in the portal, I think, after some of these foreign trips are done and people finish up summer school and can graduate. So there's going to be options, although, Nebraska does have some depth at guard, but there's a reason they got Eulis in the first place, and that's they felt there's a need there. So it's not the best start to the trip, and I'm really bummed that these games aren't on TV, because when I see that Kel Jacobson is playing both center and point guard at certain points today, that would have been tremendous content.
Absolutely, it would have. We'll get into more Nebraska basketball once their trip is done, as we kind of look back who played where. Before we move into the favorite and least favorite games, I do have to say, I brought this up with some other people, and you guys as college basketball aficionados, I'm sure will have thoughts on this. But do we think this is better or worse than what happened with LiAngelo Ball and UCLA in China?
Oh God.
It can't be that bad. I mean, we don't. I actually do remember one time randomly I was at a Kentucky-Kansas game when Ulyss was playing for Kentucky in 16, and I think I do remember meeting his parents, Tyler Ulys's parents, also Aaron Ulys's parents. And I can't imagine them going on CNN and arguing with whoever replaced Crisco or Chris Cuomo. That was boy, that brings back memories.
We don't have a tweet from Joe Biden yet, so I'd say we're probably off to a more secure start in that situation than the LiAngelo Ball incident, which had, of course, Donald Trump tweeting about that within 12 hours. So we can only hope that no international incident has been caused. I mean, he's in Spain, so it is a real real conundrum. And hopefully as the week goes on, now it's like the storyline to monitor. Here's hoping it's not that bad though.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's just kind of quiet on this front, like that they'll provide updates when needed and that there's no further updates, at least for the rest of the trip.
And at the very least, I think America and Spain's working relationship is better than that with America and China. So we can all hang our hat on better geopolitics than last time. All right, we'll update, like you said, more on Nebraska basketball when more information becomes available. We started with Landon for Nebraska ball, so Matt, I'll turn it over to you first. Let's get the pain out of the way. We'll get into the wins in a little bit, but we'll start with the losses, the most painful losses for each of our teams. I'll cover Duke, Lane, and Oklahoma State, but Matt, lead us off with Kentucky.
All right, you want my honorable mentions first or just rip the Band-Aid off?
Honorable mentions to lead up to ripping the Band-Aid off.
I split this into two categories, regular season and tournament. So I'll get the regular season ones out of the way. Those were a little less painful. One of the big ones I'd say was the 2018-19 season opening, losing by 30 plus to Duke. That was, I mean, in the end, it really was a lot of these regular season losses weren't consequential, but that was one where it was like just absolutely humiliating and kind of a moment where, Kentucky fans realized we're not the cool program in college basketball anymore. Like there is a team with more NBA talent and better NBA talent than what we have. So I put that on my honorable mention. There was a 2010 I've got. They were undefeated and lost at South Carolina. Devin Downey went nuclear that game, and that was actually John Calipari's first loss. I have that one. I have the aforementioned 2016 loss at Kansas, which was my first and only trip so far to Allen Fieldhouse. Great game. Kentucky actually led for most of it, but then Bill Self pulled out that dang triangle in two and forced it to overtime. And Wayne Selden, I think, went nuclear in that game, and they lost in overtime. And couple that with the other honorable mention I have, which was 2016 at Texas A&M, which they also lost in overtime like a month later. Kentucky was about had it put away, and then Isaac Humphries, their third string center, made a big play, got a rebound, drew a foul, and then slammed the ball, got called for a technical. A&M used the free throws to kind of claw back, and then I believe in overtime they won on a tip dunk at the buzzer. And in the end, they ended up sharing the SEC title, but those two losses in 2016 led to Kentucky getting a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament and having to play Indiana in the second round. And with the team that had, Tyler Ulyss and Jamal Murray, it would have been nice to see that team make a deeper run. So those are and then for the NCAA tournament, my honorable mentions, run through them. 2021 St. Peter's, it's just depressing to lose on the first day of the tournament. And then it's like, well, I don't get to watch my team the rest of the tournament. That sucked. You guys were there. I was talking through it with you. Those were dark days. 2017 North Carolina, the Luke May shot, that just a good game, intense game. It was just miserable. I really wish I could have seen, Fox, Bam, and Monk make a Final Four run. That team definitely was deserving. 2010 West Virginia, just a clunker of an Elite Eight game for John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins for them to go out. That sucked. And then a couple Tubby Smith ones from a child. 2004 UAB in the second round when Mike Anderson was the coach.
That's right.
Yep, they were the number 1 overall seed in the country. And yeah, they just missed a bunch of putbacks at the buzzer, got bounced. And that was kind of the first, crack in the foundation for Tubby Smith at Kentucky. And then UAB winning. I think that ended up, Georgia Tech ended up making the Final Four because of that, if I remember correctly. And then 2005 Michigan State in the Elite Eight, double overtime classic. Patrick Sparks, one of my childhood favorites, hit a 3 that hit like every part of the rim and rolled in to force overtime. And then he high-fived Billy Packer at the scorer's table. Truly electric. They lose in double overtime. And then, I don't know, it would have been fun to go to the Final Four again. Tubby hadn't been since 98. And then they would have played North Carolina, who ended up winning it all. And, maybe they could have won that one. They were a good team. They had, Kalena Azubuike, Rajon Rondo, Chuck Hayes. They had a good team that year. So that was a bummer. But without a question, the one that takes the cake is the 2015 Final Four loss to Wisconsin. So I think that was pretty predictable. Just because even in the moment, it would have been fun to at least get to that last game, like to get that 40th game, even if, and especially because like all year, I mean, Wisconsin was really good, but I mean, they were on the fringe of dropping to a 2 seed by the end of the year. There's a reason that they were that 4th 1 seed playing Kentucky. It would have been fun to have Duke, Kentucky with a 40-0 season on the line, especially they would have matched up pretty well. Tyus Jones versus the Harrison twins, Jahlil Okafor versus Karl Anthony Towns and Willie Cauley-Stein, Justice Winslow versus Trey Lyles, things like that. So yeah, that was that's a game that I still won't watch. It was painful.
That's twice in your list that we were robbed of classic Duke Kentucky games.
2010.
Because that 2010 would have been, because Duke ends up beating West Virginia and then Baylor. But John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins versus John Shire and Brian Zubek, I guess, would have been the DeMarcus Cousins answer. But
yeah, that would have been electric. And both games would have been in Indianapolis. So would have been great crowds. And also just that Duke West Virginia game stunk. Like at least Duke Wisconsin was a good championship game, but that Duke West Virginia game was never close.
No, it was not. The Duke Baylor game was much closer than the Duke West Virginia game. So, all right. Well, your pain's out of the way. Sit back, relax, listen to ours. Landon, the Oklahoma State Band-Aid comes off. What you got?
Yeah, I guess thankfully I don't have as many NCAA tournament heartbreaks to share. But I would say just to start my list, the 68-55 loss to Oregon March 21st, 2013, which would have been Marcus Smart's freshman year in the NCAA tournament when Oklahoma State entered as a 5, lost to a 12 seed Oregon coached by Dana Altman. That one of that era really hurt the most. It just stunk. That team was really, really good. Deserved a lot better. That was Smart, Forte, LeBron, a sophomore year, LeBron Nash after a really good freshman year, Markel Brown, of course, and Michael Cobbins. That group, it wasn't deep, but they really, really deserved a tournament run. At least one while Marcus Smart was there. The second year he was at Oklahoma State, things had kind of sort of sputtered out a little bit, and they went out to Gonzaga. But of, the 2010s era tournament losses, that one definitely stung. I've got a couple other honorable mentions from 2014, both of which were losses to Iowa State. Oklahoma State was swept by Iowa State in 2014. Both games were overtime losses, and both games were aided by Naslong heartbreaks. The first of which was a 98-97 loss in Stillwater on February 4th. I remember this one really vividly. Naslong hit a game-tying 3 with seconds left in double overtime to send it to a third overtime. And these Oklahoma State teams in, the Marcus Smart era were not deep. They played like 6 guys tops, and they just sort of ran out of steam in triple OT, lost 98-97. They had a shot. LeBron Nash had a shot.
I remember that game.
From the corner at the end at the end of triple OT. They got the ball back down 1, couldn't hit it. And then the second game of the season series in Ames, Oklahoma State was also sunk in part by Naz Long. And I forgot just how brutal this one was. But Oklahoma State was up 71-68 in Hilton with 5 seconds left. Phil Forte, who, one of the great free throw shooters, I would probably say in the history of recent college basketball. Dude was like a 90% free throw shooter. He had made the first, put Oklahoma State up 3. All he needed to do was make the second one, make it a 4-point game with 5 seconds left, would end it, but he missed. The ball ended up in DeAndre Kane's hands, and he pushed it forward to Naz Long, who just took a dribble inside and made like a 30-footer as time expired to tie the game, to send it to OT. And then Oklahoma State ended up losing. So those from the 2010s era were bad. And then just a more recent one, Oklahoma State losing at KU on New Year's Eve this past year.
Yeah.
Honestly, that was probably the difference between Oklahoma State making and not making the NCAA tournament, looking back on it, especially with OSU having been the last team or the first team out. OSU was up 45-30 at halftime in Allen Fieldhouse. And then literally the joy from that first half was sucked out of the air instantly when KU went on a 22-5 run to take the lead back. OSU went back and forth, but ended up losing. The game stunk, but didn't really hurt me as badly at the time. But man, looking back on it, if Oklahoma State would have been able to close that game out, they probably would have made the NCAA tournament this last year.
And there were some tough calls at the end of that game too, I remember.
Yeah,
that did not go Oklahoma State's way.
Classic Allen Fieldhouse nonsense at the end for sure, especially on Oklahoma State's last possession. But the number one for me, this probably is a little bit predictable too, but it's the 80-70 loss to Oregon State in the second round of the NCAA tournament, the round of 32 in 2021. That was probably, at least from my time as a cognizant, aware Oklahoma State men's basketball team, the most talented team I have ever watched. Cade Cunningham is a once every couple of decades probably type of guy. The impact he had in his first and only season in college was insane. He took over games. He scored 30, 40 points semi-regularly and brought Oklahoma State to heights that had previously been unseen for years. Even with Marcus Smart, they weren't winning as many games as they did with Cade. They made the final of the Big 12 tournament, for crying out loud, which never, ever happens to Oklahoma State in a conference with, KU, Baylor, Iowa State, all these, traditionally great programs, at least this, millennium. So they had like such a great year. And the thing that really, really sucked is how the Midwest region broke for OSU, because their little pairing, it was OSU entered, by the way, underseeded as a 4 seed, playing a pesky Liberty team who they beat. And then in the 5-12, Oregon State, who had been not even close to NCAA tournament consideration and had ran through the Pac-12 tournament somehow. They then beat Tennessee. So you have that matchup with Oregon State. And the Saturday before, the OSU Oregon State was a Sunday night. That Saturday, Loyola Chicago upsets 1 seed Illinois with Ayo Dosunmu and Kofi Coburn, who pretty much everyone had as a lock to at least make the Elite Eight against Houston for the bottom of that region, if not make the Final Four and further. So that's just like this huge break you get, and you're like, wow, okay, like if Oklahoma State can win against Oregon State, you have this dream scenario against Loyola Chicago in this path to the Elite Eight, but it did not happen. OSU came out horribly flat. They were down 15 points at halftime and never really in it at all. They made a late push sort of, but that team, like the group of guys they had, all deserved better. And the funny thing is, looking back, a lot of those guys are still in college today, except for like Cade Cunningham and Farron Flavors, but like the Boone twins are still there. I believe Matthew Alexander Moncrief is still in college. Like, it's just funny, like from that team, felt like a while ago, but a lot of those guys are still in college. But that one hurt the most. It was really depressing. I thought that was going to be the finally Oklahoma State makes this deep tournament run, but I was crushed after that. I was really, really upset.
Yeah, we went through that one together too, I remember.
Yeah, man, that and OSU was a big favorite in that game too. Oh,
and that's another what if. Like, I kind of wish that they would have swapped Creighton and Oklahoma State in those brackets, because, then Oklahoma State would have had tough challenges against UCSB and Ohio. But I would have loved to see Cade Cunningham versus Jalen Suggs in the Sweet 16.
Yeah,
that would have been. That's a what if.
That team and Cade Cunningham deserved a proper tournament run to at least the Sweet 16.
And I remember that game was on like a Sunday night. It was the last game of the day, and it was just there was no energy to that game.
No, and from the jump, you could get the sense that OSU was toast, which is why the late push to get it within like 2 or 3 or whatever they did late just made it hurt even worse.
Yeah.
All right, that's 2 Band-Aids off. We got 2 more to go. I'll give the Duke ones first so we can discuss the Nebraska ones a little bit. Again, in the 2 categories, we have the category that I went to, which I'll put at the most painful, even though it's definitely not like the most painful Duke loss, and then the ones I wasn't at, which is how I broke it up. You have Mercer and Lehigh. Yeah, whatever. Crap happens. You move on. The non-Tar Heel division of most painful loss for me is 2019 against Michigan State in the Elite Eight. That team was going to win a national championship because all you had to do was beat Texas Tech, who was good, salty, but not what they would be, the next year, the couple years after that. Good, beatable. You have Virginia and Auburn in a game that I know Matt. We've heard stories from that one. Duke had handled Virginia. Auburn didn't really scare me.
Auburn too. They beat all 3 of those teams.
They did. That's right. Yeah, they beat Texas Tech in the Garden. Before that, they beat Auburn in Maui before falling to Gonzaga for their first loss at Maui ever. So the path was there, but Nick Ward happened, and Xavier Tillman happened, and it denied RJ, Cam, and most importantly, Zion a championship. So that's the non-Tar Heel division. The entire 2021 season is up there. K's final home game, losing to them. And I bear full responsibility for the loss in the Final Four. Duke was up at half. I get back to my apartment after not watching or listening to a second of it. I turn the game on and things go south. So I wear that one completely. I don't think there's any topping losing to Carolina as with a first-year head coach in your legendary coach's final year. There's no topping that, but the one that I would put higher than that if I had to would be the 2017 Elite Eight game against Kansas. I was at that game, the only Duke game I've ever been to up in Omaha. Had to survive a nail-biter against Syracuse, which was gross. I hated every second watching that game on TV because I was waiting for Syracuse to do something stupid and leave it to Roger Ayers to do something stupid instead. So Malik Newman, I hope that you sprain your ankle and recover in a week. Well, Gerald Vick, you annoy me. But that 2017 Kansas team features again, and this is the most painful Nebraska loss I came up with. The game against Kansas at PBA.
That was on my list. That was number 1.
It was on my honorable mention.
Okay, I'll set the stage for you and me, Landon, before you take over, Matt. But I had been to the game down at the Fog the year before. Kansas handled business, whatever. That 2017 game, the 2017-18 team, if they beat Kansas, that's a tournament team. There is no keeping them out of it. But it's back and forth. Kansas leads pretty much wire to wire, but never by more than like 6-7 points. Nebraska kept it close against a really talented Kansas team. I mean, Udoka Azubuike did his thing, was an absolute beast inside, which wasn't necessarily surprising. You had Devontae Graham on that team. Marcus Garrett wasn't what he would be in a couple years. But the guy I was worried about all game long, Svi Mikhailuk. Kansas takes a timeout with like 30 seconds to go. I'm up there in the KRNU broadcast booth, and I said, Azubuike's been on a heater. Graham's their guy. But this play is a 3 for Mikhailuk. That is what they're drawing up. 7 seconds later, bada bing, bada boom, bada bang, Svi Mikhailuk 3. Still 23 seconds left. Nebraska doesn't get anything to fall. The team misses the NCAA tournament. They're in the NIT. Brutal. Would have been the signature win of the Tim Miles era.
Yeah, that was even before I started Nebraska men's basketball that closely, but it was on at a friend's house. Yeah. And as a Kansas basketball hater, a reputation that I maintained all through grade school and high school, I watched the entirety of that game. And I was so crushed when Svi hit that shot. Oklahoma State went on to sweep Kansas
Vengeance,
which we'll talk about in a second. But man, that KU team was really, really talented. I mean, they weren't also very deep, but the high-end guys there, because remember later on that year, Silvio De Souza ended up joining the fold rather controversially. Yeah, that Nebraska team was literally a signature win away. I mean, now looking back on it, it's a similar position what I talked about with Oklahoma State a little bit ago. It's like you get that one win, and with Nebraska under Tim Miles, they really, really lacked that one big time opportunity. And man, beating a team with that pedigree at PBA, I mean, who knows what would have happened if that's a real serious Nebraska basketball. What if Nebraska wins that game and makes the tournament? Might be a lot of things that are different with the state of the program now. So that really is like a very significant and pivotal moment, I think, in the last decade or so-ish history of Nebraska basketball.
All right, Matt, give us your number one. Rip the Band-Aid off. We got other games. We got positive to get to.
Yeah, I went right to the end of the stem of that season and said Michigan 2018 in the Big Ten tournament at the Garden. They to lay an egg in that game were honestly just winning that one, and they're in. That's all they had to do. And they would have had 2 weeks to rest and get healthy. I could have covered the team in the tournament. That would have been fun. I remember I was looking at all the different locations that the tournament was at that year. I was like, ooh, Boise. That would be fun. So yeah, that is the one I said. Couple other ones that I had for honorable mention though. 2018 Creighton that year. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Great game. 2019 Maryland at home when Bruno Fernando kind of emasculated Nebraska and Tim Miles cried in the post game. They just played terrible that game. 2019 also Big Ten tournament losing to Wisconsin in the quarterfinals. It would have been so cool for them to have, beaten another NCAA tournament team and then get to play on CBS in the quarterfinals against Michigan State. That would have been fun, but we were robbed of that. So those are my honorable mentions.
All right, Landon, let's apply some healing ointment to the wound now. The Band-Aid's off. You alluded to it. Oklahoma State and Kansas maybe feature on your list for the best, most satisfying wins.
Absolutely. I will burn through honorable mentions quickly. First of which I just mentioned a little bit ago, Oklahoma State over Liberty in the 2021 NCAA tournament. That snapped a 9-year drought from having won an NCAA tournament game. Another one that I kind of barely remember was the triple overtime win over Texas in 2007.
That's on my list.
That was a great game. I don't remember a ton of it. I wish I remember more. But
I remember all of it. That was one of my all-time favorite regular season college basketball games.
Yeah. I mean, I would recommend, anybody out there listening, go look up highlights from it. It was on YouTube. College basketball game. It is on YouTube. That was freshman year Kevin Durant, who was incredible at Texas. DJ Augustine was also on that Texas team. My favorite highlight that's burned in my brain is Byron Eaton making behind the back, not behind the back, but over the shoulder 3-pointer from 40 feet from the basket is the shot.
At the shot clock buzzer. Yep.
That was a fantastic shot. And it's probably honestly one of the more iconic wins in Oklahoma State program history, at least since 2004. So that was a really good one. A couple other quick ones. The 2018 win at Allen Fieldhouse against Kansas was really cool. That was game one of the season sweep in which they eventually swept Kansas, but then didn't make the NCAA tournament, for reasons. They beat number one Baylor in 2022. That's one I just felt I should include because that's the only time they've done that in program history. And then the last one before I get to the good one is the 79-72 win over Mizzou in January 2012, a game famous for Markel Brown throwing down two of the best in-game dunks I've ever seen in my entire life, receiving technical fouls after both, and then being ejected. John Higgins was actually an official in that game, but Oklahoma State ended up beating number two Mizzou at home, which was awesome. LeBron Nash had 27. He was great in that game, and I
forgot about that game.
That was the Mizzou team that ended up losing to Norfolk State as a 15 seed in the NCAA tournament. So
I'm tweeting the Markel Brown dunks now, just so you know.
Yeah, they both were insane. One was on literally the first points of the game was him just throwing down over a guy that was set to take a charge. And the second one was a great oop from Keaton Page. And yeah, after both, he received a technical foul. They were incredible in-game dunks, though. And that was a really great game for a young me, too. But the one that gave me the most bragging rights as a middle schooler in growing up in suburban Kansas. Oklahoma State 85, number 2 Kansas 80, February 2nd, 2013, otherwise known as the Marcus Smart backflip game, for him doing a backflip on, the center logo at Kansas after the victory. This game snapped an 18-game KU winning streak, a 33-game home winning streak, and as I previously mentioned, gave middle school me the perfect amount of bragging rights. Marcus Smart was great all game. He had 25 points. That was kind of his coming out party, even though, I'd been watching him all year and he'd been great. But this really sort of cemented it on a national stage. Of course, as I said, he did the famous backflip at midcourt after the victory, after the final buzzer sounded. OSU had a 14-point first half lead, let it slip away. It's kind of a theme at Allen Fieldhouse, but they were able to reclaim it. They went on a late run. They pushed the lead up to 8 or 9 points and held on from there. And then, OSU went on to lose to Oregon in the first round of the NCAA tournament. But that win was an awesome one. It's cemented in my brain as one of my favorites. I don't have the stat, but I'm sure it was the first time OSU had won at Allen Fieldhouse in quite some time. It was a great game. Made me very happy. Made young me very happy. So that would be my number one for sure.
Yeah, you unlocked some core memories of my childhood there with those. I'd also like to add, you might have been a little young for it, Landon, but one of my first Oklahoma State memories was the St. Joe's win in 2004. I think it was the Elite Eight. And that was very early in my college basketball watching days. And 2004 St. Joe's and 2005 Illinois were pretty much like the teams I revered, these teams are unbeatable. No one can beat either of these teams. So for that, I remember that was an awesome win to watch.
Yeah.
And one of those first March Madness is the best.
Yeah. A bit too long ago for me, but I have seen plenty of highlights from it. So
I got to throw that one in there.
For sure. All right, Matt, fly through the honorable mentions. Give us the healing ointment for Kentucky.
All right, honorable mentions. Regular season, I've got Jody Meeks scoring 54 points at Tennessee. Just went absolutely nuclear on Super Tuesday. 2010, John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins were back. They beat North Carolina, who ended up missing the tournament that year, but that was, it was a nationally televised game on CBS. Rupp Arena was rocking. That was the Kentucky's cool again moment. Also 2010, there was John Wall versus Kemba Walker. 1 year before Kemba became Kemba at the Garden. Great game, John Wall. That was kind of his coming out party. It was right after the Carolina win. That was a good one. 2 games against Mississippi State 2010. That year was so fun. First game they're playing, this was when Mississippi State was rolling. They had Jarvis Bernardo, who blocked every shot in the history of college basketball from 2007 to 2010. First game, they're down in Mississippi. They're down in Starkville. Students get DeMarcus Cousins' phone number, blow up his phone the entire night before. Has the game of his Kentucky career. Throws down a big dunk and then does a call me to the students section. They end up winning that in overtime. And then they played again in the SEC Tournament Championship that year. And DeMarcus Cousins hit a putback at the buzzer to force overtime. I remember I was standing on my couch and I jumped up and nearly concussed myself, hitting my head on the ceiling. Just an awesome game. Other games, talked about it earlier. 2015 UCLA, they were up 41-7 at the half. 2017, Malik Monk goes nuclear and does, I think, 47 points on North Carolina in Vegas. Just one of the all-time great regular season games. Hit a game winner with 20 seconds left, I think. The blowout at Kansas in 2021 always will hold a special place in my heart. They just dominated Kansas from start to finish. Even though both teams went on to have very different marches, that's a memorable one. And then also they lost this game, but it was just a good memory. Seton Hall in 2019 played at the Garden.
Oh, yeah.
Same day Nebraska beat Creighton. Keldon Johnson hit a half-court shot to force overtime. Miles Powell was awesome in that game. He was hitting turnaround threes. And
how come that wasn't a lottery pick?
Yeah. And then my honorable mention, NCAA tournament wins. I've got Brandon Knight hitting the game winner to beat number 1 seed Ohio State in 2011. Also beating UNC in the Elite Eight that year to go to the Final Four. Beating Louisville in the 2012 Final Four. that was just kind of a relief. Pretty much all of the 2014 NCAA tournament run, the Aaron Harrison shots, especially the Wisconsin one, that was my high school bragging moment game. Beating Indiana, getting revenge on them in 2012.
I was wondering if the Watford game was going to show up on your losses.
No, because they got revenge. That was just kind of annoying. And it was such a good game too. But they put up 102 points on. They beat them 102-90 in the Georgia Dome in the Sweet 16 to get revenge on them. They led like start to finish that game. And then 2017, shutting up LeVar Ball and De'Aaron Fox dropping 31 on Lonzo in the Sweet 16 against UCLA. That was a good one. But I kind of have to put the 2012 title win over Kansas as my, favorite, because that's the only title they've had in my conscious lifetime. So, that one, though, it wasn't the best game. Kentucky got out to a big lead and then kind of just held on for dear life. And it was, Calipari versus Bill Self round 2. They, all the flashbacks of the Memphis KU 2008 game. So it was like Kansas was making a little bit of a run in the second half. They got within like 6 near the end. So there was a lot of anxiety of, are they going to miss free throws and go through this again? Like, can Cal finally get the big one off his back? But that was still, it's awesome to win a national championship. So I got to put that one number 1.
Absolutely. We got to take one quick break. We'll be back in just about a minute to wrap up the Corner 3 next.
You're listening to the Corner 3 on 93.7 The Ticket. More college basketball analysis after this timeout.
At first, I was really nervous and intimidated to buy a ring. I wasn't sure what I was getting into.
My experience at Starter Heyman was very easy. I felt like I walked out of Starter Heyman with the ring that was going to make her go wow and say yes.
I love my ring. It is so beautiful. I absolutely love my ring. I get compliments on it all the time. I always tell them Starter Heyman. Yeah, we would definitely recommend Starter Heyman.
Yeah, it was great.
We're definitely coming back. Sure. Sutter Heyman Jewelers, Lincoln and Grand Island. SutterHeyman.com.
93.7 The Ticket. Fox KFXL weather. Sponsored by John Henry's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning.
Your Lincoln forecast for today, showers is likely this morning. We'll see partly sunny skies this afternoon and see a high of around 84. Tonight, there's a chance of storms late. Otherwise, partly cloudy skies expected with a low of around 70. And tomorrow, we'll see another chance of storms. Otherwise, partly sunny skies and a high of around 88. Meteorologist Kyle Fox for 92.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Back to the Corner 3 on 93.7 The Ticket. Here is your host, Austin Orman.
That's right. We're back here on the Corner 3. We'll add Matt back whenever he gets back. But for now, it's Landon and I taking you through the last segment here on the Corner 3. I'll start with the Duke wins. There's Matt, just in time. Yeah, quick break. We're back. Okay, so the Duke wins. Honorable mentions, 2 of them from 2017 against North Carolina. The game at the Dean Dome to end the regular season, or at the end of the regular season, Duke's down to like 6.5 guys. Matt Jones goes down in that game. They still find a way to win it. Derek Thornton blocks a shot at the end of the game when Carolina decides not to call timeout. 2017 Tar Heels in the ACC tournament. Duke gets down like 10, 13 points, comes storming back in the second half. I remember watching that game. Kennard hit a big shot. Frank Jackson hit a really knifing layup and a 3, and Tatum had 24. But most famous for the Grayson Allen to Harry Giles half court from basically alley-oop. That play lives rent-free in my head.
That was an awesome game.
It was so good. The 2015 game at Virginia on the road, Duke was number 4, Virginia was number 2. Duke got out to a hot start. Virginia was up 6 with like 2 minutes to go. Duke ends up winning that game by 7. Quinn Cook hits the go-ahead 3, and Tyus Jones hits the dagger to make it 69-62, right over London Perrantes, of all players. The way he drops his head knowing the game's over just fills me with joy. Do have to throw the 2015 Natty against Wisconsin in there. I didn't watch it, but that game happened the same night I hit my one walk-off in high school. So I hop in my car, I get Burger King chicken fries, and I listen to Duke put the finishing touches on the Badgers. But the best win that I remember for Duke, one I watched wire to wire. I remember sitting on the piano bench in my parents' house to watch this final shot. Austin Rivers taking down North Carolina. gets the switch on Tyler Zeller, who just minutes before had tipped the ball into his own basket, who just seconds before had missed a free throw to give Austin Rivers a chance for the win, not just the tie. Dickie V's call, iconic. Austin Rivers so cold, the dog pile. Oh, kills every time.
Iconic.
Yeah, absolutely. Then the Nebraska wins more than I would have thought. Unfortunately, didn't end up meaning a lot in the long term. The entire run at the end of 2022, where you beat Penn State, Ohio State, and Wisconsin all in a row. I say Wisconsin because they ruined Brad Davison Senior Day, but I'm just petty, so I picked that one from that run. 2018 Creighton catharsis after the year before, after they go 1-3-1 and beat Nebraska in Omaha. The best win that I was at, I'll save, because that's my number one. But then 3 wins from last year, beating Creighton, so satisfying. Top 10 team, best team ever. But their best player in that game was Francisco Farabello, like LOL. So getting that win was great. Winning at Rutgers, I thought was a kind of, resolving moment for that team, the way they went in and won it. And then the season finale on the road at Iowa. Look at the stats. Nebraska had no business winning that game at all, but they found a way to do it. But it's the 2019 game against Iowa. That's my favorite Nebraska win of recent memory. Guys in foul trouble. You have Amir Harris, of all people, hitting the game winner with like 11 seconds to go. And then you get a Thor God of Thunder call from KP as he blocked Jordan Bohannon's shot from about 32 feet away. Nebraska had to make a serious comeback in that game. They had to hit their threes late. Iowa had to miss a few free throws. Glenn Watson came up big. JPJ had some moments. But it's the Thor and Amir game is what it is. So that's the number one Nebraska win that I can remember for me.
I had that as my number one as well, because especially that game, it was just iconic in that it showed that team actually wasn't going to quit. I mean, they'd lost, 4 in a row and were getting blown out, and it looked like they had quit at times, but that kind of set the stage for their Big Ten tournament run the following week, and was also just an awesome game. And it was cool to see the players, even as they started dropping like flies with injuries, to see them fight for Tim Miles there at the end. That was an awesome game and incredible atmosphere, even though Nebraska was struggling.
Yeah, those were good. I would say, I kind of wanted to pick one that I covered because I didn't really cover very many Nebraska men's basketball wins. So the first, I'm just being honest.
But true.
But the December 2019 win over Purdue was really cool. That was a Purdue team that had Travion Williams and a few.
Haas smacked his head.
Yeah. It was Harms. It was Harms.
Yeah, Harms smacked his head.
Yeah, that was bad.
That Purdue team was really good. I can't recall whether or not they were ranked at that point when they played Nebraska.
And Mac triple-double.
They were 6-3. But yeah, that was the Cam Mack triple-double game. That was just like a really exciting game to be at and cover, and rare to cover a win. So that's the one that stands out for me as my most memorable. And being Purdue, no easy beat. So that was a fun one.
That's awesome. Gentlemen, good stuff. Thanks as always for jumping on. We do have to get to Vershawn Jackson for the Heart of a Husker. So next week, we'll get into the Nebraska men's basketball related news with Matt Abdelmassih being hired as a general manager at St. John. So we'll get into what exactly it is that means and kind of recap the Nebraska men's basketball trip to Spain. I think that'll be our agenda for next week. And plenty more to come. We'll laugh at Will Wade in the near future with McNeese State's non-con schedule. There's lots to get to, so you won't want to miss anything here on the Corner 3. For Matt and Landon, I am Austin, turning it over to the captain, Vershawn Jackson, next with Heart of a Husker. You're listening to Ticket Weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. The home of Kansas City Royals baseball. KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
Integrated Life Choices has been inspiring opportunities for individuals with disabilities for more than 15 years in Lincoln and across Nebraska by offering a number of services. From group homes to independent living resources and job training, you'll find the support that allows people to live fulfilling lives. They're also hiring. If you're looking for a rewarding career supporting people with developmental disabilities, you can check out open positions along with learning more about services at ilc.net. Integrated Life Choices.
If you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide or experiencing a mental health or substance use crisis, call 988 for free, confidential, and compassionate support. On July 16th, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is transitioning to 988. There is hope. For 24/7 support, call, text, or chat 988.
Sponsored by Nebraska DHHS, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
This is where it happens. Long hikes with friends, kayaking adventures with family, more horseback riding, zip line gliding, rock face climbing, hammock camping fun than you could ever imagine. And it's all outdoors.